me take you through the process and rules for receiving an e-certificate. So e-certificate of participation will be provided only to those participants who will attend and participate in the virtual program or dialogue for at least 40 minutes of the entire duration of the program, and successful submission of e-feedback verified by team of observers on Zoom platform. So the decision of the observers will be final, and no clarification in this regard will be made by the organizing team. Also, the query regarding the same will be addressed, which are mailed at info.apswdp@gmail.com. E-certificate of the program will be mailed on your registered mail ID between 6th and 10th of February 2022. So thank you so much, and the time to give you all a very warm welcome. So good afternoon, friends and professionals. I, Hitesh Kumar Gulati, Honorary Director General, APS WDP, and the convener and moderator of the program, feel honored and privileged to welcome our chief guest and keynote speaker, Ms. Gitanjali M. Jayakumar, Indian Forest Service, Punjab Cadre cum Research Fellow, Finland, and our guest speaker, Ms. Elsie Gabriel, who is Ambassador for Indian Ocean Quest Global and founder of Young Environmentalists Program Trust, plus Honorary National Coordinator Oceans for the Climate Reality Project India, to commemorate World Wetlands Day 2022 today on 2nd of February 2022 through the virtual program or dialogue on Wetlands Action for People and Nature. We all are delighted to witness the deliberation from experts in Forest Service and environment conservation, specifically working in the domain of oceans climate change. It is indeed our pleasure to receive registrations from states like Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Chandigarh, New Delhi, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Odisha, Maharashtra. So almost you can say we have received the registrations from near about all the states throughout India. So we welcome the august gathering of participants from diverse occupations, including academicians, business consultants, corporate sector professionals, corporate social responsibility professionals, development practitioners, entrepreneurs, government officers, public health experts, legal practitioner, researcher, social activist, student, and others. Now, let me take you through the program background of World Wetlands Day. So, aligned to the objective of World Wetlands Day 2022 to spread mass awareness about climate conservation, Chitkara College of Education, Chitkara University has conceived a virtual program or dialogue on Wetlands Action for People and Nature in partnership with Association of Professional Social Workers and Development Practitioners and the Climate Reality Project India, with an aim to work together with academic institutions and organizations, government and communities. On this World Wetlands Day 2022, Wetlands Action for People and Nature is the theme in 2022, highlighting the importance of actions to ensure the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands for human and planetary health. World Wetlands Day is celebrated each year on 2nd of February to raise awareness about wetlands. This day also marks the anniversary of the Convention on Wetlands, which has adopted as an international treaty in 1971. This year's celebration of World Wetlands Day in 2022 is especially significant as on 30th August 2021, the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 75/317 that established 2nd February as World Wetlands Day. So nearly 90% of the wetlands, world wetlands, have been degraded since the 1700s. and we are losing wetlands 3 times faster than forests. Yet, wetlands are critically important ecosystems that contribute to biodiversity, climate mitigation and adaptation, fresh water availability, world economies, and more. It is urgent that we raise national and global awareness about wetlands in order to reserve their rapid loss and encourage actions to conserve and restore them. World Wetlands Day is the ideal time to increase people's understanding of these critically important ecosystems. World Wetlands Day is open to everyone from international organizations, governments, wetland practitioners to children, youth, media, community groups, decision makers, to all individuals, as these ecosystems are important for us all. So, without taking much of your time, let me now introduce you to our chief guest of the day, Ms. Gitanjali M. Jayakumar. So, Ms. Gitanjali M. Jayakumar is an Indian Forest Service Punjab cadre senior officer with background in agriculture, forestry, and biodiversity. She is also an alumnus of Unitar Sifal Jeju and currently pursuing PhD at University of Helsinki, Finland. She also possesses flair for wildlife photography and social activism. So without taking much of the time, I invite you, Ms. Gitanjali, to please give the inaugural address and keynote speech. Over to you, Ms. Gitanjali.
Thank you, Hiteshji, for the nice introduction, and thanks for this opportunity to be with this nice gathering. I think we are around 76 participants now. So just quickly sharing my slide. So Hiteshji gave us a very nice introduction of what this World Wetland Day is all about. And I would just set the context what this wetlands are all about and why we need to protect them in talking of this climate change. So are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah. So wetlands we can say like they are the world's most productive ecosystems. We all know the rainforests and coral reefs are very rich, and even compared to them, they say the wetlands are the most productive. And so we can even call them as like biological supermarkets. So protecting the wetlands can protect our safety and welfare. So that's the core of the thing. And that's why today we are discussing this wetlands when we talk of climate change and saving the planet. So as ecosystems, these wetlands are very unique ecosystems. They offer a range of ecosystem services. I hope all of you might be very familiar with this term of ecosystem services. If not, I would say like briefly, it is just a term, it was introduced to show the worth of the value of nature to mankind. So this ecosystem service is the service which nature or a particular ecosystem offers for human beings. Otherwise, we don't understand the intrinsic value of nature as such. So this was a term coined by the ecological economists to make us aware or open our eyes to the values of nature. So in that way, these are few of the ecosystem services offered by any wetland ecosystem. It may be the habitat or biodiversity, the recreation values in terms of hunting and fishing, nutrient regulation. These wetlands filter the water, filter the sediments and excess nutrients, and they improve water quality, and that reduces the water purification costs, soil and sediment regulation, disturbance and natural hazard regulation, flood prevention. They offer a lot of cultural values. Nature tourism is very prevalent these days. Water supply, these are the places that provide water during the summer. Otherwise, the storage of water, and a lot of food is produced from the wetland in terms of fish and so on. Not only fish, a lot of that plants also we get, so they are very unique ecosystem in that way. So this is a snapshot of the study that was conducted in the wetland ecosystem in Himalayas in a project called IC mode. I think there is some disturbance. Someone's mic is on or something. Yeah, thank you. So this is a snapshot of a study done in a project called IC mode in the Himalayas in a wetland ecosystem over there. So they have classified these ecosystem surveys. There was a Millennium Ecosystem Assessment which happened in 2005. So this was one of the landmark studies in ecosystem services. After that, we started talking of this ecosystem services. This Millennium Ecosystem Assessment was done in 2005. So this MEA 2005 classified the ecosystem services into four main categories like provision services, support services, cultural services, and regulatory services. So this study in IC mode Himalayas used this framework of these four different categories to classify the ecosystem services offered by the wetlands there. So provisioning services are those which provide provisioning services to human beings in terms of food or fuel, fiber, fresh water, and other genetic resources. And support services are that like habitat, water and nutrient cycling, soil formation and retention, and cultural services, spiritual and religious values, education, inspiration, recreation, aesthetic values, ecotourism, and so on. And the regulatory services include the pollination and climate regulation, water purification, and pest control, and so on. These regulatory services are that which helps in tackling climate change, if you say, right? So this is from my own study, which I did as a part of my postgraduate diploma program in the Wildlife Institute of India in Dehradun. So what I found was like this was in the Kaziranga National Park, Assam. So I could see this. They were a very unique habitat. We call them beels. So in this river in Kaziranga, flooding used to happen during the floods, and after the floods, they used to recede into very small water bodies. These are called beels. These are the wetland ecosystem of this unique national park. So these beels, when I went and researched, I found them. They were the important habitat for the wild animals there, and at sometimes they were providing minor food maybe to the local people. I was wondering, maybe even to the staff who may be walking around guarding those areas, they may be taking some food and eating out of them, and regulating supporting services may be the fish seed source to the water bodies outside the protected areas, because fishing was the main activity carried by the local people there. And definitely groundwater recharge was happening in their bore wells, and so on. And these provided the silt holding capacity, the silt which people were able to use for their own croplands or something. And flood control was a main activity. And even wild plants were seen, like I noticed some wild plants which were very close to the sakaram, which is a sugar cane, or even wild strawberry. So these plants, I think they may harbor some genes that may be useful in the future for disease or pest resistance, even in our own crops, And of course, the cultural value was much, because this is a national park area. It was providing aesthetics, tourism, and educational value, and there's a lot of protectional value associated with this national park as such. They were providing important habitat services for a range of animals, from mega elephants, rhinos, wild buffaloes, and even these tiny mussels, so many birds, and so forth. These are some of the values I found in them. They were serving as an undisturbed breeding ground and nurseries for fishes. It was a prime habitat for rhinos, and there was swamp deer, wild buffalo, elephants, and it was a roosting and nesting ground for migratory and indigenous waterfowls. It was supporting the globally threatened river dolphins, so these sorts of values. And if we talk of the assessment of the ecosystem values of these wetlands, I would say it's like very difficult to estimate. We cannot estimate the intrinsic worth of nature at all. And it's very difficult to compensate if we lose these ecosystems. It's very difficult to compensate for their damage. But as researchers, like even my research is focused on ecosystem services and assessments. So the general things we use to evaluate them is like there's a total economic valuation, which we try to do some rough economic estimation of what they're worth for, we can value the provisioning services, how much fish is taken out, how much income it provides to the local people, or what are the other things harvested. They may be minor for use produce and so on, and some scientists also assess in terms of damage avoided, if there's a wetland and if you think if that wetland didn't exist, what would be the cost of the flood control measures there if you had to construct a huge stone wall or something, you can work out the cost of it. So it's something we just do something just to open our own eyes, as you said, like to know the value of these wetlands, or it may be the alternative cost of providing these services artificially, the damage avoided, in case you can say, like if a flood occurs, what will be the cost of it, how many human lives will be lost, and how much of our property and other loss. So if you calculate in terms of that, you will know like how much we are saving by having these ecosystems intact. And there's something called hedonic pricing. Like if you have a real estate or a property near a very aesthetic, beautiful seashore or a river bank, that property is going to be valued more rather than it is going to be in a very deserted, degraded land, So these are the different methods. I'm just giving a very quick snapshot what these ecological economists used to value the ecosystem values of these wetland ecosystems. This is just to give you an idea. I'm not getting into the depths of it. So what I would like to say is like we should safeguard these ecosystems before we lose them. We should protect the existing wetlands, and we should revive those wetlands which are in a degrading or a degraded state, so that we can restore the ecosystem services and bring them to uh, really functioning ecosystems. There are different types of wetlands. There are coastal wetlands. I think the speaker after me will be focusing on these coastal wetlands. And we also have the inland wetlands. Wetlands can be near the rivers, lakes, or dams. The one I showed in Kaziranga, it's like a river ecosystem, and these beels are associated wetlands with the river ecosystems, something like that. And there are wetlands near lakes, there are swamps, marshes, and dams are like man-made ecosystems. They are not natural. So these wetland ecosystems can be either natural or man-made, can be associated with the inland water ecosystems or the coastal water ecosystem, whatever be. Like these wetlands are very unique ecosystems offering a range of ecosystem services, and safeguarding them is in our interest. So with this, I think I would like to say a thank you to all for patient listening. And if in case you have any queries or anything, we can discuss right now or later, however the organizers will suggest. So even the picture you see behind me as the virtual background, this is a wetland ecosystem. This is Sisma Dam, very close to Chandigarh. So this is one of my case study areas. So I just put it in the background. So I'm studying the ecosystem services of this Sisma Dam Conservation Reserve. And it's quite enlightening to see how a small man-made wetland ecosystem is of so much worth, So this is just a beginning, just to give you a snapshot of what it is all about. But in future, it's up to you. Like think about this, ponder about this, and try to act wherever you can, in whatever way you can, to save these unique ecosystems. And it's for the good of you and good of all of us. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ms. Gitanjali. And I think with your inaugural address and keynote speech, you have made it very open for all of us to open our eyes, because it is very important to do the assessment of ecosystem values now and safeguard the coastal wetlands, which you have shared in terms of near the sea, and inland wetlands, which is near the rivers, lakes, and dams, and then the natural man-made wetlands. So you have made it very open and categorically you have specified what all wetlands we need to observe, and we need to work on the climate change actions related to that. And I think nobody else better than Elsie Gabriel can explain about this particular system, because Elsie, she herself is closely working with oceans, right? So without standing much in between Elsie and all of you present here, let me now introduce you to our guest speaker, Miss Elsie Gabriel. And Miss Elsie Gabriel is founder president of Young Environmentalists Program Trust and national coordinator, Oceans Climate Reality Project India. She is ambassador for Indian Ocean Quest Global International and national coordinator for the Climate Reality Project India. She is also co-chairperson of Ocean School India, an award-winning author, environmentalist, climate change advocate, global speaker, who is trained by former Vice President of US, Mr. Al Gore. When she is not connecting the anthropological discoveries to the globe, she is diving, researching on oceans climate change as a PADI certified diver with expertise in environment law and mass communications, researching on climate change and ocean communities. So over to you, Miss Elsie, to take the dialogue further.
Thank you so much, Hitesh. I'm truly humbled by that elaborate introduction. I congratulate this forum here today for putting this together and creating and establishing awareness, and just not celebrating, but getting together to enforce the theme for 2022 World Wetlands Day, which is Wetlands Action for People and Nature. So I'm really inspired by our keynote speaker as well, and I congratulate this mission that you have hosted here today. So basically, Hitesh, before I begin my presentation, would you have that video?
Yes.
If you could play that video, please, I'd be very
Yes.
grateful.
Yes. I request Surinder from Chitkara University to please play the video shared by Miss Elsie.
So as a deep sea diver, I've been to over 32 ocean countries, and out of the 32, at least 30 of them have been surrounded by mangroves, wetlands, and marshes. So that's how important they are. Yes, you can go ahead with the video if you're ready.
Mr. Surinder, can you please play the video?
So way back in 2005, it was in fact the wetlands, the mangroves of Mumbai, which got absolutely flooded with the immense amount of rainfall that there was in 2005, and it made international news. And it was the Powai Lake which overflowed into the Methi River, and then the Methi River flowed out into the ocean. And it was the destruction of the mangroves which could not control the immense flooding that took place in our city. So that's where our mission started way back in 2005, and that's how Young Environmentalist Program Trust is very, very closely associated with wetlands and mangroves.
Okay, Elsie, should I play the video if you allow? I also have it with me. So I'll just share the screen, right? Thank you.
so much, Hitesh. That was a very beautiful self-explanatory video by Climate Reality Project India. And I thought it's so befitting to share this with you, and it gives you elaborately all the details already outlined by our first speaker and by Hitesh as well. So it just reiterates and outlines everything so beautifully. So I would like to elaborate today on very quickly on solutions and actions. Basically, Young Environmentalist Program Trust from 2005, we have been using, in fact, the mangroves, marshes, and the Powai Lake of Mumbai here as our classrooms. So this is so exciting, not only for the student community and the environmental science projects, the biology projects, the science projects, as well as the community at large who want to contribute to ecological restoration. This decade 2020 to 2030 is declared as ecological restoration. And if you would ever like to reach out and contribute your time, energy, and your expertise, find a place where you do fit in to uplift these wetlands. That's how you can make your mark, by being a part of the solution and the action plan. And therefore, you can make a measurable impact on uplifting the status of wetlands around you. So therefore, we've been working at the Powai Lake here in Mumbai, where right from the rich biodiversity, the flora, the fauna, the crocodiles, as well as the water hyacinths have been taken into consideration on our research projects. And I would like to elaborate for our student fraternity here today that what you can do is, first of all, there are a 10-pointer series on the solutions and action plans for Wetlands Day, is that you don't only have mangroves and rich wetland areas around oceans to start with. What you can do is start mapping the marshes, ponds, talaus, tanks, or marshy areas of fresh water, and areas like this, even in other areas which are not close to the ocean. So even if you're in North India or you're in the middle of India, and if you feel that you're not near the coast and you're not going to identify just the mangrove species and connect it directly with wetlands. Mangroves are not only part of wetlands. You have other elements also already elaborated by our first speaker, like marshes and ponds and talaus and lakes. So therefore, if you can identify them in your area, that's where your first step to taking action starts. And if you can start mapping it, and then after mapping it, you can dissect and see the status. So once you study the present status of that pond or talau, and then you can start working on its restoration. So build a point program where you do have an agenda where you can take your working format forward. So I would say that you could start with early planning, and then you go on to implementation and monitoring. And you cannot go on to your action and solutions if you do not have your mapping in place. So once you have identified and mapped the area of these marshes and the wetland areas around you, then you can donate your time with the municipality system, with the forest and environment system, or the entire communities and conservation projects and NGOs working around those wetlands. So once you identify where you're going to work, you also identify whom you're going to work with. And collaboration is key. So for the student fraternity and the other participants here, once you identify that area that you're going to work on, collaborate, network, tie up. And therefore, once you identify your skills and also the area of which part of these wetlands needs restoration, you will take this action, measurable impact forward. So therefore, it is, and a part of our system where it is, said that it is also part of our ocean literacy program and modules that we have. And ocean literacy we focus on so that though environmental education, environmental science is no more compulsory in the school and college curriculums. Of course, in college, you can specialize in environmental sciences, but especially in the younger students, it is fused into biology and science. So what happens is that we also incorporate wetlands as part of our ocean literacy program. And therefore, we take that on forward. Just excuse me just one moment, please. There's been an emergency. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. So once you have identified, you can work with the conservation groups and take that forward. And also the teaching faculty here can make special modules and incorporate these modules into the ocean literacy programs. And then when you're working with the community, what you can do is also build up and harness a citizen scientist movement. So if you feel you're unapproachable, or if you are not belonging to the science faculty, if you're not belonging to the wetlands fields, and for many people in India, wetlands is a very alien concept because they just related to the coast and the oceans. So make sure that you ensure that ocean literacy modules and citizen science modules are incorporated into the education agenda and the curriculum. And of course, you can correlate it to the chapters of the educational program, whether it is CBSE, ICSE, or a senior high, or your collegiate, of course, and take that forward. So make sure that you incorporate wetlands and marshes and mangrove studies into the program. And of course, you can do live tours like we do. We will host all our wetlands and our mangrove science classes as outdoor classrooms. So you can also incorporate on World Wetlands Day, make it a mission to incorporate the wetland zones as your outdoor classrooms, which gives first-hand interactive education, which is very invigorating, motivating to students. In fact, post-COVID, when the schools and colleges open, I have been already trying to give lectures on bridging the gap between getting back to college, between getting back to institute, between getting back to the four walls, bridging the gap between your digital medium and your classroom. It would be excellent to get out there in the mangroves, in the ecological wilderness, in the biodiversity, in the wetlands around you, and try and bridge the immediate gap, which has been for many of the young adults and youngsters for 2.5 years. Therefore, you can use the wetlands as an educational setup to bridge the gap when you're going back and inviting your students back into the universities and colleges and schools. So you can use that as well. Of course, you all know, and it's already been said earlier, that wetlands and mangroves have so much of tourism value and do have educational value. And but you can use them when you take that on further to bridge the gap for the post-COVID isolation break. And ending it with a mission statement, which would be garner public support. You need to garner public support after identifying your wetlands and your marshes and your areas that you're going to work with. Once you identify your public support, you also need to have your networking with your stakeholders. Identify the stakeholders responsible for the wetlands and the mangroves around you. Once you identify your stakeholders, it is easier for you to connect and to work with the system rather than against the system. So these are all points which lead you to the action solutions where wetlands are concerned. We all know how beautiful they are, and we all know the rich biodiversity, the fishing community thrive off it, and most of the world live off these wetlands, But you can make this a multidisciplinary stream and incorporate it in that. And of course, when you're looking at mitigation of these wetlands at whatever level you work at, with the municipality, with environment and forest, or with your institute, wildlife institutes, or your mangrove departments in each state, what you can do is also see that there are natural fixes and bioengineering involved. Why? Because there's a lot of infrastructure developments going all across where these coastal areas of mangroves and wetlands are. So instead of just pure activism, what you can do is provide a solution of bioengineering and natural fixes. And if you have that skill, try and work in that sector as well. So today I have outlined the various solutions and the action plan that you can use when you take a step further down to being part of the ecological restoration for the decade 2020-2030. So having said that, I'd like to close with the note saying that it is wonderful, diving and empowering the ocean habitat community and the tribals that I've been working with in the areas of Lakshadweep. And it is important that you pass down this education and your experience once you know to the community who live around these wetlands. So once you empower the community, you make them independently work and be caretakers of these wetlands themselves. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Elsie. It was a very nice and crisp way of inspiring all of us. And how rightly you have mentioned that it is the time to collaborate and network to work together on the ground when it is related to climate change, and especially when we are talking about wetlands, it can be ocean climate change, it can be reverse climate change also, and building resilience. So time to pledge together to protect and restore the wetlands. And I think the video that you have shown has made us more sensitized towards this particular area of climate conservation. So thank you so much. And I think both the presentations were too good on this World Wetlands Day, where we as people have to work together to conserve the nature. And now we'll make the forum open for all if they have any questions to ask from our speakers of the day, Ms. Elsie and Ms. Gitanjali. We can either have it in chat box, or otherwise you can unmute and you can ask your question. Yes, if anybody is having any questions, they are most welcome. They can come forward and ask the questions. And in the meantime, I'm posting the feedback link in the chat box so that you can give an e-feedback of the program that we have organized today on World Wetlands Day 2022. Anybody, Dr. Wani or anybody from Chitkara University team, anybody outside Chitkara University also, you're most welcome if you want to have any questions from our speakers. Yeah, Aditya? Aditya, do you have any question?
Oh, no. I got unmuted.
Okay. We also the feedback of the program. Dr. Anu, Dr. Sangeeta, if you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask Ms. Gitanjali and Ms. Elsie, because we still have 20 more minutes to go.
Yeah, it was a very beautiful video, Hideshji, and it's nicely summing up the entire concept. I think the whole program is summed up in a minute's video. And for the general knowledge of all the participants here, something I'd like to tell is like there is something called the Ramsar site. You all might know that's the status accorded, so that to know that the wetland is of a very international importance, so just like a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, if a wetland is like of a rich biodiverse value, they accord a Ramsar status. I think this World Wetland Day, 2 new wetlands have been added to the list, I suppose. So the list is growing. But personally, what I would say is like the list may be growing, but even those wetlands in the list are getting degraded. For example, in Punjab, I would say like we have few Ramsar sites that are almost degrading, so it's just not the name of it, you know, having a Ramsar site alone doesn't suffice. So the thing is, the action is needed, just like Elsie elaborated, you know. So we all need to take action in whichever wetland that's close to us. So that's the takeaway for today. Action is needed. Just name or declaring won't suffice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing those case studies from Punjab area also, Ms. Gitanjali. And Elsie, do you want to share anything as a concluding remarks of your particular presentation?
Yes, in fact, to some of the student fraternity here. And today we conducted among the student community, not colleges, but till senior high, World Wetlands Day Action for People and Planet essay competition. So since it's COVID isolation, students at home researched and outlined, and we had over 1,000 participants, all India, participating in this essay competition. And next year we will make it bigger and better. And while doing their research, that's how they incorporate and imbibe and take down more messages. And you know, before you can really reach out to help them make their projects. And on the senior level in the colleges, whenever they want to make their science projects, I'm always, you know, batting for wetlands. I'm always telling them how rich it is. And I always take them, if you're ever in Mumbai, do not forget, I have been to the wetlands of Mexico, Grand Cayman. I have been to the wilderness wetlands of Australia, Madagascar, Maldives, and even Mauritius. Malaysia was the richest mangrove there, swimming with the crabs and you know, the other prawns and things like that, shrimp. But if you ever tour Mumbai and if you are in Maharashtra, please do come to the Mumbai wetlands in Suri as well as in Navi Mumbai. Right now, as I speak, we have over 5,000, 10,000, you can say, flamingos, which have flown in, and they are just spread like an ocean of pink cascade over the sea and between the mangrove and the land and the ocean as a buffer zone. And as you go closer, you feel that's man's richest, you know, God's richest gift to man is this wetlands, you know, with the flamingos. So you have lesser flamingos, and these darker color ones are also there. So there are different varieties of flamingos and birds, and this is one tourist attraction, which is a wetlands heaven, you can say, on earth. So compared to globally, wherever I have researched. So if you're in Mumbai, go out there, get inspired, get your feet dirty, and see how rich our wetlands are, and our country is filled, like ma'am said, with Ramsar sites, as well as many wetlands waiting to get onto the Ramsar you know, list. So if you can help to put those on the Ramsar list, be a part of that as well. You could work on that as in your research as well. So there you have it. And of course, they're a buffer between the oceans and our tsunamis and our you know, calamities that do take place in the coastal areas, which are becoming more frequent. So help to plant the mangroves and work with the people, support them. And if you're far away, you can always garner more volunteers or fund, increase the fund. In fact, this year's international message by the UN is to increase funding for wetlands. And so you can ensure that in your own country and try and work with CSR and the government to promote more funding for people already working in the mangrove and wetland department.
Thank you so much, Elsie. In fact, you'll be surprised when we were thinking of inviting you for this particular program. You are an ocean of, you can say, knowledge in this particular area, which I was sharing with Vivek ji also. You are an ocean of knowledge, and nobody other than you can explain it in a much better way. So that was the reason we discussed with internally that we should invite Ms. Elsie for this particular program. And obviously, when we have Ms. Gitanjali with us, so that makes the entire program complete, because she gives some other angle to that particular respective area also, right? Since we are not having much questions from our dear participants now, In a very short and crisp way, you have touched various areas, and I think within 1 hour we can't touch more areas apart from this, right? So it is time to give the concluding remarks and vote of thanks, right? So we express our heartfelt gratitude to our chief guest and keynote speaker, Ms. Gitanjali M. Jayakumar, who shared her knowledge and wisdom in the virtual program and dialogue on wetlands action for people and nature while commemorating the world's Wetlands Day 2022. We are inspired by the words of our keynote speaker that it is very important to do the assessment of ecosystem values and safeguard the coastal wetlands which are near sea, the inland wetlands which are near rivers, lakes and dams, and natural or man-made wetlands. I hope you all will agree with me that it was a privilege to listen to Ms. Gitanjali M. Jayakumar. The special sharings by our guest speaker, Ms. Elsie Gabriel, with her vast experience in ocean climate change and solutions, has made us realize that India has lost nearly 1/3 of its natural wetlands to urbanization, exploitation, agriculture expansion, and pollution. So it is high time to collaborate and network to work together on climate change and building resilience. So let's pledge together today to protect and restore the wetlands. Dear friends and professionals, an event like this requires meticulous planning and an eye for details. Sincere thanks to our guide, Dr. Niyati Chitkara, Principal, Chitkara International School, Dr. Sangeeta Pant, Dean, Chitkara College of Education, Chitkara University, Dr. Parul Sood, Assistant Dean, Chitkara College of Education, Chitkara University, Mr. Aditya Pundir, Director, India and South Asia at the Climate Reality Project India, Mr. Vivek Trivedi, Founder APS WDP, and Dr. Sumit Arora, President APS WDP, for their talent advocating leadership and empowering the team to execute the dialogue meticulously. Special thanks to the organizing team members, comprising of Dr. Vani Parvez, Dr. Anu Verma, and Mr. Surinder Kumar for their remarkable efforts, in-depth planning, and timely implementation of the virtual program on World Wetlands Day 2022. Heartfelt gratitude and grand applause for all of you for showing your keen interest in this event, without which none of us would have come this far. So all the participants, please make sure to fill and submit your feedback form link, which is already shared in the chat box. And before we leave this particular program or dialogue, I request all of you to please switch on your videos so that we can have a group photograph before we leave this meeting. Please switch on your videos. And we'll take next 2-3 minutes to take the screenshots. So thank you all for switching on the video. I'm just taking the screenshots one by one. Still, we have some of the videos which are not turned on. I request you all to please switch on your videos if you can. One last minute. And let me give you an update. We have received 31 responses in the feedback. So people who have not given the feedback till now can still give the feedback. We have another 2-3 minutes before we leave this particular meeting. In between, if somebody wants to share what kind of initiatives they have taken when we talk about celebrating World Wetlands Day, they are most welcome to share. Anybody? Chandrasekhar sir, would you like to share something?
Yeah, as far as wetland in Mumbai are concerned, one thing I would like to mention that it also stops a lot of plastic material.
Right.
The plastic which flow from the rivers and go into the sea, much of them is stopped by these mangroves. And I've seen a lot of coolies in Mumbai going into the sea, going into the marshy area and collecting this plastic.
Right.
So in a way, the wetland is also helping in removing plastic going into the sea.
Right.
That probably many people don't know about.
Right.
The rest, a lot of destruction of mangroves is happening in Mumbai, especially in the areas between where I stay. I stay in Goregaon. So between Versova and Gorai, there are a lot of wetlands and mangroves. The total coastal area is completely wetland and mangroves. And there are a lot of builders who are dumping all kinds of debris into this wetland. And somehow this particular area is not being addressed by the authorities very well. And when we say that wetlands, 50 times more carbon is there in this wetland than planting of trees. We have been giving a lot of weight to planting trees. It is required that we should be putting in that effort to save the wetlands in Mumbai is what I feel.
Right, sir.
And thanks for this today's webinar. It's been an eye-opener to everyone.
Right,
I'm sure after listening to this, all students who are there will be motivated to do at least something to stop somewhere the destruction of wetlands. Thank you very much.
Sure, sir. And we'll come back with the more interesting programs based on the feedbacks we are receiving from all of you. And till that time, we wish you good luck, and we wish to see you in our forthcoming programs of Chitkara University, APS WDP, and Climate Reality Project India. So thank you all for now, and hope to see you soon in the forthcoming program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsie. So time to leave the meeting, and we'll meet you soon in the forthcoming programs.